Calling me order at 7:04 p.m. Thank you, Eric. What is the so I want to introduce the executive board first. I'm going to do a scan of the room. If I miss you, please let me know. We have our vice president, Jed. He is also going to be monitoring the chat tonight. So folks online, if you have a question, please type it in the chat and Jed will make sure that your question gets answered in the order as we go through questions and comments. We have Peggy Ock, one of our auditors, Irene Person Campbell, another auditor, Barbara Lonsdale, another auditor, and Julie Leonard, our treasurer, and Margaret McDonough, our secretary, and I am Sarah Prescott, your president. A little word on the consent agenda. I couldn't find the meeting minutes to publish, so we will approve those at our next meeting. I did find them. Okay, yeah, so we'll have minutes next time. So it's a meeting orientation. We run this generally by Robert's Rules of Orders. Robert's Rules of Orders to the best of my ability. Volunteer. So if I get it wrong, thank you in advance for your grace, but also we do have a really full agenda tonight, so I have to limit things to one question if I say that ahead of time, so I do have to stick to it on that. If you know parliamentary order more than me, you can raise your hand and I will take the assistance. I put the president's report at the beginning instead of halfway through, mostly for flow. It's on a piece of paper that is on the back. Table back there. This is just sort of our summary of what we're going to be talking about tonight and some upcoming opportunities. It gives a little bit of context to what is on the agenda, so it's not just a sentence and it's a surprise when we get to that point in the meeting. So just some upcoming community engagement opportunities last month for feedback for Transit on the Move. There's a website on here. This is also posted to the Spenard Community Council website. You can click there and give some feedback on what you'd like to see public transportation do. And Spenard Second Saturdays. Spenard and some other community councils will be staffing some information tables at the fair too in about 30 minutes prior to David Dreamer's talk on the history of Anchorage's older neighborhoods. If you've ever seen him give a talk on the history of Anchorage or Anchorage neighborhoods, they're delightful with just the right tone of seriousness. Highly recommend. That is going to be Saturday, September 13th at Fairview. Doors open at 10:30 and it starts at 11. That's generally my report. Do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda, which admittedly just leaves the agenda because we don't have the dinner? That's moved by Jed, seconded by Irene. Any objection? Hearing none, we will move on to community announcements. So this is the time when if you've got about a 2-minute announcement about what's going on in Spenard, let us know. And then after that, at 7:20, we'll have a report from our school board representative, Kelly Leffin. So please raise your hand and I will call on you in the best order I can see. I see Matt, then I see Jed.
So this summer we had 18 pedal parties where we met at one watering hole on our bikes and then rode our bikes to another watering hole. And that was it. The 18 of them, they had over 150 people show up over the course of the summer. The final one is tomorrow. The bike ride is between ABC Brewing and Midnight Sun Brewing. I don't know where we're starting, but it's on the website. You can easily search it. And it's on Facebook. So come ride bikes with us tomorrow. It's the last one for the season.
I'm sorry, where are you meeting tomorrow?
It's either at ABC or at Midnight Sun.
It's at Midnight Sun.
At Midnight Sun. We're meeting at Midnight Sun. Riding to ABC.
Oh, what's the name of the group?
Pedal Party Anchorage.
Jed, where?
Just want to let folks know about a cool volunteer opportunity. Last Wednesday, I helped out with an Anchor Gardens project to give away produce in partnership with the Lutheran Social Services Food Bank, which is on, I think, 33rd in Spenard. It's kind of behind the Carousel Lounge. From 3 until 7 p.m. next Wednesday and the following Wednesday, the 2 Wednesdays left in September. they're giving away free produce. Come on down if you need some vegetables. They're also cooking with the vegetables, showing you how you can use these things. If anyone wants to volunteer, they can definitely use the help. And if you also want some vegetables and need the help, go. It's great.
And time,
3 until 7 p.m. Next Wednesday and the following Wednesday.
I have a thing I forgot in the meeting orientation. On August 22nd, there was a raid on the Chelsea Inn. I want to take 90 seconds and acknowledge that that's a win. That's a win in our community. We've been cleaning that place up, and it would not have been possible with the advocacy from everyone here, from the work that you guys have done, and from the work that the police department has done, from the work that FBI has done. I am positive that I'm leaving someone out. So if somebody knows someone I should be giving accolades to, please speak now. Marshals? Marshals?
US Marshal,
US Marshals?
the neighbors.
The neighbors? Yes. So on the agenda tonight, we do have Chief Case, and one of the questions is, what is the plan for those who were there? They're going to go now, but I did want to take that time to acknowledge that that happens. And that could not have happened without the advocacy in this room, so thank you.
Like tears of joy. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody have an announcement about trick or treat fish free? Does anybody want to?
It's just so much fun. So if you have children, grandchildren, neighbors' children, have them deck out for the holiday. It's on a Friday this year, the 31st. And it's from 4 to 6 approximately. And I don't even know how many stations, but several places are giving candy and maybe toothbrushes if you have a dentist friend or something to balance it out. But yeah, we probably are looking for people to help pitch in for that too. So it's a great activity for the kids.
So if you want to set up a booth, something fun, something artistic, Shauna is the head of our committee for trick or treat fish cream. And the community council has money. We buy the candy. So all you have to do is come up with a fun, interesting way to give the candy to the kids. I just stand there and hand them candy. That's
And if
it.
you wanna throw your friend or neighbor under the bus and give me their number, I will shame them into setting up.
And it's literally only 2 hours.
You're weird people, I love it.
And we had about 400 kids show up, and they typically just walk down to the neighborhood. Like there's not even a parking issue. It's one of the coolest things that we do.
Gave away bacon last year. So yeah, just.
How so Shauna's coordinating, so if people wanted to. Who do people contact if they want to do?
You can contact me.
Okay, I'll make sure. Any other community announcements? Yes.
I have one. My name is Ricky. I live at Last Line. It's just over here, about the seats. And my friend told me that there is a Pride Foundation event on September 12th at the Heritage Center called 10. And it says this year's theme is homecoming, reflecting our commitment to creating spaces where LGBTQ plus people can return to ourselves, to community, to the basis of that nurture and sustenance. That's Friday, September 12th, 6 to 9 p.m. And I'm about to buy a ticket on payday, which is Friday, and it's $50.
Okay. Additional announcements, are we good to hand it over to Kelly Lessings?
What part of you with a hand sit, walking circles around you?
We're fairly casual. Just remember that the camera's here, there.
Okay.
So yes, if you want to stand, if you want to sit, wherever you're comfortable.
I'll stand. My standing desk. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm a member of the school board. I've been on the board for 4 years. We serve the entire Anchorage municipality, but in our, prior board members influenced them, they've divided the 7 of us into the roughly 8. There's numbered only. The 8 comprehensive high schools that we have. Eagle River and Shubiak get clustered together. But this year I'm serving West High School, its feeder schools, and the community councils that are around that region. So hello, if I haven't met you in person before, and hello online. So just really briefly, for those of you who don't know, the board meets about twice a month on the first and third Tuesdays of each month, unless there's a holiday and something weird happens. We have 3 board committee meetings about the last Thursday of each month. And because this has been our community council, every other month I'm following the downtown community council, so I will either be here in person or remotely, so thank you for being an option. It's just really helpful. Like at a super high level, the board has a superintendent, and we've said we have these 3 goals about reading the graduation rates, and we're going to monitor your progress, and we need to align our resources with those goals. That's like a really high level sort of summary of what the board is doing right now. So as we think about our school system, you know, that's what I'm thinking, like, what are our goals and what are our, and how can we make these things work together in service of our kids and our community. It's back to school season, so if you know a principal or a teacher or a parent or a kid, go bake them some cookies or get them to trick or treat. I love it. But sports and activities are back in full swing, so student athletes are playing and running and doing all the things. Because I'm here on the west side, I will say that West High School, whose actors and performers got national media coverage this spring with their Hadestown performance. Like, there was a story on NPR nationally. They're back out in 3 weeks. You can see them perform Ride the Cyclone. I've already bought my ticket. I'm excited. They're going to do a great job. A few new things coming this year. We do have a new revised cell phone policy in place that you get the Insert Daily News. There was a story on the front page today. The short version is off and away all day for K-8 for high school students, off and away in the classroom, and the principal gets to decide whether it's off and away all day or whether the students can use it in passing periods and lunch. So the story was saying, hey, up in Eagle River, that principal decided we're going to keep it out of the whole day. So we do allow the principals to have discretion. It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens. So I wish all of them luck. If you are a parent or caregiver, there you go. Exhibit A, thank you. Yes, okay.
That all on the back page, territory.
Parents or caregivers of students who ride our buses can now download an app called Stop Finder. So if you're waiting for the bus to come to your house, you can see if it's 5 minutes away or 15 minutes away. And if you are waiting for your kiddo to come home, same thing. So it should be helpful for students and their families. Again, it's called Stop Finder. Security wise, all visitors need to show an ID. We have this Raptor screening software. It does a quick background check. It sounds like this community council is full of a lot of really eager beavers. If you would like to volunteer in our school system, you can fill out a form. They'll do a background check on you to make sure you are a great person. And you can click on all schools or specific schools. Maybe you want to help be a crossing guard. Maybe you want to be a, whatever is your superpower, I guarantee you a kid in this district will benefit from it. So think to yourself, what's my superpower? And tell me how you've gone and volunteered the next time I see you. I will say I serve as the board treasurer. I think a lot about our dollars because I think budgets are a love letter to our students in some way. We're going to be talking a lot about our budget throughout the year. And just at a high level, as the assembly member, Brawley and Resverdia as well, the board has to pass a balanced budget every February for the following school year. So we've just started the 25-26 school year. We are already backwards planning from February of 2026. So we're going to start having those budget conversations this fall. Going to be talking about right sizing again. The reality is that we have out migration, we have an increase in interest in correspondence school, we have declining birth rates, And so we're going to be grappling with footprint and how to provide the best services to our students as part of the budget process. So just a heads up, so I can talk more about that next week. Speaking of riding the cyclone, it was a bit of a roller coaster of the summer. There were federal funds that were frozen and then they were unfrozen, and we're waiting to see what's gonna happen with a change in something called the local contribution at the state level that's coming up in October 8th and 9th at the State Board of Education level. So all of these things sort of outside of our control are going to be having various effects on the resources that we have available to serve our students' needs. So just to give you a very brief high level, who are our students? We're just starting to get our enrollment reports for this year. And we're at about 41,500 or so, give or take. Kids are enrolling every day. And more than 1,100 of them are students with intensive needs. These are kiddos who may require a full-time nurse to make sure that they're safe. Some of them require, really high ratio of staff to support the needs. So 1,100 out of 4,100 and 41,000 was a pretty high ratio. So hopefully together we can serve all of the kids in our community. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't want to take more time than I need.
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Can you take all people in order? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to suggest that all administrators and faculty have name tags. I went to the Rowing back to school, and everybody doesn't dress professionally anymore at schools, and it's hard to figure out who's who. Whether you're a kid, 6th grader just going into middle school, or a parent. I was talking to the vice principal. Oh, well, do you know where this is or whatever? And I had to ask him who he was, but I think everybody should wear name tags and their position in the school. If we're all putting visitors and our name tags and go through background checks, I think the employees.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion. I'll write that down.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Sounds like you're doing amazing things. When are you gonna teach the 4th graders how to read?
There is learning happening in every classroom. I'm a 5th grader, so I can tell you that 4th graders learn.
Nationwide, I believe we're 48 out of 50. Means we're number 2 in creating criminals. It would be nice to move us down to number 3 at least.
One of the extraordinary things that I learned about Anchorage and the Alaska school system broadly is that our students come into the system from a variety of places. I will tell you that among Anchorage's not economically disadvantaged 3rd and 8th graders, we have a case on last year's Alaska Star data. They are significantly outperforming their peers in the massive. Anchorage's economically disadvantaged 3rd and 8th graders are underperforming compared to their economically disadvantaged peers in the massive. The spread in Anchorage is tremendous. So I think it's really dangerous and disingenuous to say that our 4th graders can't read. The growth is happening, and it's very hard to make that growth continue to happen. We don't have the resources to lower our class sizes if we cannot align resources with classrooms. So I'm really proud of the work we've done in adopting the new curriculum for our K through 5th grade, 5th graders. It's in alignment with the Alaska Reads Act, and the growth that we're seeing is faster than the national rate of growth. So I'm really proud of that. But thanks for the question.
Proficiency level ranks. So you get
Bring it in.
so when the last time
For which grade level?
any of them
It really failed.
is about 50%.
It is for some of our economics, we not disadvantaged students.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, the next thing we have is actually an introduction topic. We will not be moving on tonight. It's resolution 2025-05. The resolution is for I forgot to change the agenda for the resolution. The resolution is the resolution to support provision 0 goals in the municipality of Anchorage. The agenda reads, the resolution is for pedestrian and driver safety improvement in the municipality of Anchorage. they mean the same thing, but Vision Zero goals was clearer for the purposes of resolution, and this is why we don't do agendas the night before. So, but the context of the resolution has not changed. I know you may recognize some of these goals from previous resolutions that we've passed. The reason this is back is in none of our resolutions do we say we support the goals of Vision Zero as a community council. It dances around it quite well. It gives lots of details, which is great for some projects, but for others, the support of Vision Zero goals or whatever an initiative is also important. So if folks are interested in hearing from that crew, I can invite them to our October meeting because they're not voting on this tonight. But if you wanted to explore more about Vision Zero and what they do and the work that they're doing, they're trying to design our streets and roads so they're safer for all of our users. I did not need 5 minutes on that, but I can take questions. Matt.
I have a comment, is that okay?
Yes, okay.
So this week, Helsinki just celebrated their first year with zero traffic related fatalities. That means they lowered their speed limits, they made their pedestrian crossings more robust, they increased education for drivers. They've been working for 40 years to have their first year with zero pedestrian, cyclist, motorist fatalities. This is something we can do. It's the data is there, the research is already done. We simply have to implement it. I hope that's what Anchorage's Vision Zero is trying to do.
How's their mental health over there?
I don't.
Drug and stuff like that.
I don't know what that has to do with speed limits and infrastructure.
How's that do with people getting out on them very with their technical?
Yes, they do have heroin addiction in Helsinki. And people do jump out the streets, but at the appropriate speeds, drivers are able to stop without killing.
Okay.
I think this resolution is great and I'm looking forward to supporting it next month. The enumerated list of kind of priorities, I don't know if that is a prioritized list or if it's just, these things. I would argue that strengthening enforcement of traffic laws should be a little bit higher. But just your thought, maybe for next month, we can discuss this.
We could amend
We could just pull it
now.
down, or we could just pull it down.
We could like
Pull it
pull it down
instead of numbers.
instead of any grading.
Because I think that they're all.
Yes.
I'm Dave Donnelly. I grew up in Spenard, spent the first 42 years of my life in this community council. Now I live over in kind of midtown, close to Elmore. I'm very concerned about the goals of Vision Zero because they have a lot of things that I don't think everybody would support in them. We gotta be really careful about it because my neighborhood's been victimized about turning Elmore to a 35-mile-an-hour. That's mostly the people on the hillside are getting punished by it. But I was keen, that I pretty much got that road done when I was in the state senate. And it was never intended to be reduced like that to create the kind of chaos that's going on there now. Because it's like a country road. And when you reduce main arterials so that people feel uncomfortable using them, and Vision Zero also envisions narrowing all the road lanes, make it creepier when you drive, slow you down. If you do that, then what happens is people start taking shortcuts through neighborhoods. When they take shortcuts through neighborhoods, the quality of life really goes down. So you got to be careful about the impacts of some of the things Vision Zero is pushing right now. What's the speed limit now? They dropped it to 35. They do on Elmore, and it's just kind of like out, one half of it doesn't even have anybody living on it. It's got very few driveways. So we have roads all over town at 45 with all kinds of driveways. I remember in 1966.
I'm sorry, we gotta move on. Bill has a comment.
I'm concerned about this because when I look at it, you have 14 and 10. you don't say where they're at or how many are in the Spenard area. And it's like, we're not the guardians of the galaxy. And plus you're looking at 1% of 1%. And that could easily fall under Darwinism. At some particular point, you have to have an acceptable level, and this is, in my opinion, is more than acceptable. And that we, 0% is just how things happen. They got lucky this year. But by the laws of average, unless you have everybody walking, you're gonna have a traffic fatality when you have 260,000 people in the city. It's just going to happen. And should be a little more mindful of what we're asking for here. How many accidents did we have in the Spenard area? That's the first thing. You should go with that instead of the number in acreage. You should sit back and say, okay, which roads do we want to slow the traffic down on? Not just throw it out there, because once it goes in committee, you've lost it. It's in the mob rule. And
Solutions have,
what's that?
solutions have outlined the streets that we wanted to lower the speed limit on and made it more safe.
You've got a really general document, and if we were representing the whole city, I could support it. But we're just representing Spenard, and I think I kind of agree with Dave here. The more you decide to adjust the speeds in roads, the more shortcuts they're going to take, the more time they're going to go through neighborhoods with small children. Then they're going to do speed bumps, and that's going to irritate people even more.
Question over here.
Yeah, I look at this as a matter of looking at best practices. You don't wait till someone falls off a ladder, factories and safety upgrades. So you're looking at the best standards from around other places and trying to incorporate them into your community. I'm not fully sold on this. I would really love to take you up on your to invite them to a meeting so we can have a discussion with them to learn more about it. That would be support what the resolution is.
Sure. I will see if they're available for our October meeting. Yes.
Yeah, and I would like to know what the toxicologies of these pedestrians that are being hit, because for the driver, there's only been like one person who's been found at fault that I've heard of, so that means out of 14, that 13 pedestrians were at fault. Rating it that way, so I don't see why we need to have any changes. If mental health and drugs are probably not the roads and speeds.
Sure. Is there anybody who has a comment or question before Matt? Because Matt already went. Okay, Matt.
A quick Google search revealed that Helsinki has the highest rate of opioid addiction in Europe.
Huh.
Yeah, nobody got.
Not many drill days, but. All right, I will see if they're available for October. And we will move on to the information topic, which is Morgan Buchanan, who's going to tell us about the Minnesota Sidewalk Repair Project. Morgan, are you here available? Keep talking to the screen.
She's online, but I'm gonna give the lead here. Morgan actually set the meeting up for us.
Okay.
So my name is Dave Gammons. I'm with a company called Lombard Associates. We're a consultant on the project. It's a DMATS federally funded project that's being administered by the DOT. I've got Travis Holmes, who's the project manager here with me. We kicked the project off fall of last year. This spring, we did our field investigation and went out there. The project extends our Minnesota Drive from Tudor to Hillcrest Drive, and it involves the sidewalks out there. So we went out there, assessed the sidewalks, looked at what the issues are. Many of you here are probably very familiar with the sidewalks out there. They've been installed around the 70s, so they're about 50 years old. There's vegetation that's grown over time. It's damaged the sidewalk. Sidewalks are about 4.5 feet wide, and they're attached, narrow, yes, attached to the back of the curb area near the road. So a lot of it is not ADA compliant. The driveways are current that are out there are currently not ADA compliant. So the proposed project is looking at upgrading the sidewalks to make them ADA compliant as well as the driveways out there. But one notable proposed solution out there is to utilize the west side. There's right of way available to make a separated pathway for a majority of the west side of Minnesota Drive, from all the way from Tudor up to Hillcrest Drive. So that's over by West High. So the project is looking at adding that buffer space for snow storage, and have that space between the non-motorized facilities and the ground. The other thing that the project is looking at including on the project is adding those missing pedestrian crosswalks at Benson and Northern Lights on the inside lakes. So we will be including that as part of this project as well. We've moved past preliminary design phase. We've presented the alternatives to AMAS, the Technical Advisory Committee and the Policy Committee, and we're moving forward into final design over the winter through next year, and we're shooting for construction in 2027. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I've got fact sheets out there with our contact information.
I was wondering, have those size lines and when pedestrians want to cross that always the traffic stop, because you press the button at the light so that you're not waiting for the traffic. When it's a green light, there's always a pedestrian walk when you're taking the right turn.
Right, so you're talking
So
about
it's like a green light telling you can go, but there's a walk sign, people to walk when you're turning. So it's causing miss.
So there are different phase legs of turning movements. There are protected phases for pedestrians to cross, and there are phases where there's conflicts with the vehicles that are turning, but that's a yielding. So similar to if you're yielding for an oncoming vehicle, you're making a left turn where it's a permissive phase. So at the Benson and Northern Lights intersection, we're looking at including the pedestrian movements and then having that left turn.
If you don't have a lot of pedestrians, the button to activate so that pedestrian can walk.
Yes, yeah. So it's
Days, those times when there aren't pedestrians.
right. So they're pedestrian actuated buttons, so it would activate that phase of that route.
And then it would stop all ways of traffic. In Boston, you pressed it, all four ways of traffic stop. So if you wanted to even cut diagonally, so you didn't have to do two, you
Sure.
could do that because all traffic stops.
Right, there's certain types of intersections with high volumes where something like that.
Yeah, because, yeah, walking is very confusing and. Yeah, I agree. It's very unsafe.
So we'll check out something then, Matt and Celia, how is this folding in with the Minnesota IL corridor plan?
So the Minnesota IL corridor plan is separate from this project. That project has a separate, vision, future project, and is looking at the entirety of that network, along with potentially revisions to the driving. So this is only looking at the non-motorized facilities, but I can't speak for that project and say what is included or what's.
Do they know that this?
Yes, they recorded with that.
Great.
Long.
And then Matt.
Just to second what she said, that she's absolutely right. That intersection has proven to not be a safe place for automobiles and people to have a green light and a walk sign at the same time. And the other thing that is infuriating, because I walk that intersection regularly, is you go up and you push the button for the pedestrian cross and nothing happens. The light has to finish its cycle completely. Pushing the button doesn't interrupt any timing. It doesn't do anything. If a person doesn't push the button, then you don't get the walk signal at all. It stays the red signal. We should do away with the buttons just activating the walk signal. They need to actually function to stop the traffic so that people can walk. And that's the only way that you're going to stop hurting people and bike riders.
Yeah, Celia.
I was just ask if you're planning for bicycle access there.
Bicycle access, so this.
For the sidewalk, yeah.
So the non-motorized facility will be on both sides. The east side will stay a sidewalk attached. The west side will be a separated pathway. It'll be between 8 and 12 feet wide where we have it with 3.
Does that include the bike trail on Minnesota between Spenard and Jefferson? And the park on where the tennis courts are?
Yeah, so we're looking at also realigning that so that it has a consistent with. And eliminating that attached.
Okay, and then what they were talking about, Northern Lights and Benson's, I feel like because there's a school there, maybe there should be an overhead pedestrian crossing bridge as well.
It's been brought up, it's separate from this particular project, but something that's definitely, be potentially looking at mid-block crossings, so there's a separate from this project.
Yeah, sure. Oh, people have traffic signs, used. And that's on there to send them.
Yeah, you can email, and you can call us at the phone numbers that are included on the fact sheets.
Can you get that line?
We'll be working on this project through 2027.
Oh. It seems a little later, but like, no, we don't keep that in, but.
Some of those push buttons first.
Okay. Any final questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, the information topic, Mac Properties, is operating some, shelters here in Spenard. And we are going to sign some memorandums of understanding with them. What that does is it outlines the agreement. If something happens at a shelter, residents can call this organization. If something happens and they need to let Spenard know, this is who you call, and this is the time frame it happens in. So we do have Susanna here. If you happen to have any questions about the MOU, I will also bring it up on the screen. You had words.
Okay, all right, hey, everybody.
Do you have words?
I do, I have the words. I'm Susanna Becker. I noticed many familiar faces have been coming here for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. I work with Match Property Management, and we have several different areas that we try to serve the community at large, as well as the homeless population. So many of you know that the Alex Hotel, the Annex building, has historically been used during the winter cycle. When the shelter system opened up, we could come in a flurry, a vendor would operate a shelter, and then in May, there would be no shelter. The administration is taking a different approach by looking at performance at the shelters by each of the operators. We are directly accountable for the people in our care and getting them to move forward. We have many ways to do this, behavioral ways as well as incentives to help people join us in moving them forward. We will be serving, hopefully with approval from the assembly for the next few years out of that venue. That is limited to 100 beds. So there have been, and there is now, and will be 100 formerly homeless people who are now housed with us. We stand with you as a community. Really want to be transparent about some of the issues that come about. I have my business cards on the back table. My personal cell phone is on there. I'm accountable for everything my guests do. If anybody in the community has any issue of the behavior or the operation of the Annex out shelter that Match is operating, I stand in accountability to you. I've heard the issues come forth several times about the Chelsea, the influence, and so I'm aware that it's a deep commitment that we're offering. And so each one of you, I hope that you will go to the back table and get this and call me at 2 in the morning because I'll answer. And if there's somebody rummaging around, I'm going to get somebody to come help as where is appropriate for a shelter venue. I look at the taxpayers' dollars. I'm a taxpayer too. We have begun streamlining our shelter into performance case management, meaning if the guest is not willing to step into the space and involve in case management and move themselves forward, then they are directed back to a congregate setting.
Because the Alex Hotel is intended to be a trampoline, not a place to get comfortable. And so you have my commitment that that is what is going to happen, has been happening, and will continue to happen. When you have a stop, start system of sheltering, it really kills your momentum. These guests need emails, they need cell phones, we need to communicate with them. And in a 5-month period, it was just too challenging. The work we stopped in May went nowhere until the next winter, and we had to repeat all of our work again. It's just, we had to get off the merry-go-round. So now what we're seeing, now that the administration has pivoted in this way, we're seeing success in ways that we haven't before. Measurable, I can tell you, last month we had a certain number of people housed. We've gone up 30% in 1 month. This month, we're going up another 30. We're expecting more from our shelter operators, and they're holding us accountable, and we are holding ourselves accountable to each of you. I mean it. If anybody has questions, my peer and colleague Kyle Levy is in the back. He's gonna write down all the questions, and I want this to be a dialogue that continues. This is our neighborhood. If we're having problems that I can help solve in relation to the Alex shelter, you got my support. I'm right there with you. I walk the streets. I drive the streets. I feel like it's my second home, even though I live on base. I love Spenard. And you have my commitment, as well as property management's commitment to get this right. It's super important. With that.
Sorry, one question for taking Alex.
Sure.
So what is your policy retaining possessions of people that, you know, happen to
Didn't lose their bed, whatever happened.
lose their bed?
Yeah.
Any number of violations, somewhere.
We hold on to their items after they leave the building physically, at least 30 days.
Yes.
At least 30 days, sometimes more if we have space. We are space limited, but we do our best because I realize that sometimes that's all somebody has.
So do you look on to both totes or?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh,
They can come in with up to 2 totes belongings and we will take custody and keep them in our care.
okay.
Both totes.
And if anybody has some problems pertaining to their possession, it's just in the.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything with the Alex shelter, this is the number because I take complete responsibility and I'm fully committed to resolving every issue.
Thank you.
You could just pass those cards around.
Can I get more?
So I have a question, how do we know? There's a lot of people on the streets in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So if we have concerns, how do we know if they're an Alex client?
So that's tough. I would say that it's right around the shelter is the area that's most of my guests, so we go off campus, offsite, and we patrol actively. And we have shifted the culture of Alex in a meaningful way. Where they definitely want to stay in good graces, they are more aware of the opportunity, and they realize there's a lot less slack. If you live 2 nights, you go back to congregate. Empty beds, we're paying for beds, they're gonna be filled. You have my word, we're gonna use that resource wisely. So if it's with curfew at night, 10 p.m. to 7 in the morning, if you see those people on the street, those are not Alex people. I will be there tonight. I will be driving around Spenard. Well, you know, I do, I don't remember, you better get back. You know, I'm not fun, everybody's talked about, nagging them, tell them to get back and everything, that helps. It really does help, so that officers, when they're doing patrols and they're looking and seeing people on the street, it's not my 100. They're in, they're accounted for, they're cared for, they're safe. The other ones that are on the street, yes, those folks need beds. If you're having property issues, and you're wondering if maybe it's one of my guests, please reach out to me directly. I take accountability and self-operation.
Repeat the curfew times.
The what?
The curfew time.
The curfew time, so 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 10 or 11. It's 11, I'm sorry, it's 11. It's 11. We do a head count at 11.
Consider revising that curfew time, because people just take a lot of bus, and it's not a soft curfew, you could have people getting kicked out for any period of time.
Yeah.
Just based.
So we try to work with it with everybody. We want to create a fair, firm, consistent policy so that nobody feels picked on or somebody else has different attendance policy. So we always understand if buses are running late
will kind of watch the trends, and we actually have about 40% of the people out of shelter actively working. They are working in the Spenard area. Please hire these people. Interview them and give them a shot, because they are sure trying. Bunch of people working right on Spenard, and very grateful at the job.
You said they're non-controversial at the outlets. It's a act out. I don't know, 1 strike, 2 strikes, whatever, they go back to congregate, where's that?
Good question. So congregate historically this year has been at CWS,
Yeah.
1111 East 56th Avenue.
Yes.
But as of yesterday, we opened up Linda's Place, and so we've split that population of 200, around 100 to Linda's Place, so we can do facility repairs and preparing for the winter surge. And also we wanted to diversify as far as logistically around the city. We'll have shelters, different areas of the city.
There's Linda's.
Linda's Place used to be Fantasies on Fifth, anybody know? 1911 East Fifth Avenue. It's the gray building that's across from Merrill Field. There's also a tan one that's that shape. We're the gray one. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. We create the space with awareness that these are people's family members and that they're acting up, potentially simple. Sometimes they need support, right? Sometimes they need accountability, sometimes they need an ear. Whatever that is, we're willing to step in and in it with them. Build a rapport, and that's what really helps. Match now it's got congregated windows, non-congregated outlets, and housing through the Anchorage Affordable Lab Trust. So it's really nice and low. Recognize people, we also hire people with lived experience. I have several people who were homeless last year who work for me this year, and they have a home apartment. And they're giving it back to the system instead of drawing on the system.
Service too.
Yeah, we have about 4, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing because those folks have been there, and those are the ones that get you the conversations. What you really need to get out, what you really, really need to make it at your next place, and they'll tell people lived experience where they won't tell somebody else.
So, yeah, wait, so the people that are currently in the outs, you've got 100, yep, sedation, did they go through a protocol to kind of vet?
Yeah.
You know, so they're ready to take that step?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
So we're at some abuse like the dress, the culture shift. Okay, tremendous. With the closing of the Chelsea, we have so much hope. We have so much hope. 4% of the shelter working. That's never happened. Like we were getting somewhere. And the administration has these policies like year round that help us keep the momentum going. And we're really starting to feel some traction here.
So we need to go through this. I live and work in Spenard, and I've come across a lot of people that are in the position that they're going to be like desperately seeking a place to be.
Yeah.
So that they aren't there yet.
Right.
Outlets,
Right.
They are
Congregate.
Yeah.
They go to the congregate sites.
Do we need a card? We can get a card. We can get that information from you.
Yes.
So
Take my card and anything related to hostess, if I can help you, feel free to contact me. If I can't, I'll route you to somebody who can.
they'll do
Yes,
drug, substance abuse.
yes. For instance, no more. Okay, I was laboring, returning. So I'm driving around the Jeep patrolling and I see some folks on Center Road and they're drinking and that's like to myself, my goodness. And so the next day we created a crisis intervention style. This is not okay. And we offered transfer to CWS or treatment, but you behave that way. This man, I've heard the community. But I'm really trying to meet both needs of propping up and supporting the community and also taking care of these people that are humans and worthy. Yeah. And so we're very passionate, very committed.
Thank you so much for doing it. Like,
Because we saw you, that's so great.
if I had a job and I would like to leave offer to someone,
Yeah.
would you be able to make that connection by the person that could do that?
We have incredibly talented people at the shelter. World-class artists that can do portraits. Look at you once, turn around and do an amazing $1,000 portrait. We have professionals HVAC that are certified to do all these things. It's just, what is that missing piece that we can help enable you to succeed. And so we're really having the conversations about, instead of sitting in shelters and costing thousands of dollars, what can we do to get you housed permanently and safely? What will it take? And those are the conversations we're having that we didn't used to have. Good. And with that,
Carolyn have a question, and then our Sunday report.
Sure, I'm curious, when you're out patrolling, are you in a marked vehicle? Should you be in a marked vehicle or no?
I'm in on the low. I'm just kind of looking, all I'm doing is observing, and when I see one of my peeps, I'm taking note. And then I'm taking a picture and texting my niece as you need a session tomorrow. And then they're doing the work. So we're really being proactive to see what you see as community members and address it before you have to tell them. We really do recognize that this is your homes, there's nothing, you know, so thank you for the opportunity to serve. And please, anybody, any question, feel free to contact me, because it's my life's work, this is what I love.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have Assemblymember Aaron Baldwin Day here with our assembly report. Trying to take over with the university. Yeah, I'm sure it's not. Okay, double duty tonight. All of our meetings, all. Well, first, thank you for having me. I think this is the last time I've got to give a phone for. Hopefully, get a all that great job. So we have a big area this morning to do the opportunity great. Great. So there are a couple of pages with some agreements to report back on, and one of those is related to transportation issues. I know that you all have a variety of projects in the works in this community council area, and so I want you to be aware of some things that are happening. We'll call it a kerfuffle, shall we? That's happening with AMATs right now. So I'm one of two members that sit on the policy committee for AMATs. The mayor has a representative, as I'm sure you're aware, and then the State Department of Transportation has a couple of representatives. And that body is responsible for essentially funneling federal transportation dollars into Anchorage and making sure that projects are programmed and funded. So the kerfuffle started when the AMAX Policy Committee chose to remove the Safer Steward Highway project from the transportation program. And basically the committee's contention was that it was not fiscally responsible to spend on the low end $1.3 billion to widen the Steward Highway when there were much more pressing safety projects and transportation upgrades needed in Anchorage. That was not good for our city to do that, to allocate those. The state DOT disagreed. They were not fans of that choice. And as a result, there are a couple of things that have happened. So one is the State Department of Transportation is essentially refusing to ratify a boundary update for the AMAX geographic. And then the other thing that's happening is they're asking to revisit what the operating agreement that governs the way that AMAX functions. There's a huge disagreement brewing about who actually has jurisdiction over Anchorage roads. Whether the municipality, the people of Anchorage get to have a say-so in the shape of our roads, the flow of our roads, the safety of our roads. State DOT can make unilateral changes to our transportation plan.
That sounds familiar.
That's what's at issue. It turns out that the Federal Highway Administration agreed with AMAX that AMAX had jurisdiction over every single road in Anchorage in our geographic boundary, regardless of whether it is part of the National Highway System. That is the Federal Highway Administration's stated position. Again, the state DOT does not like that. And so we are at this interesting point where we are unclear whether the state DOT will be taking up their issue with the Federal Highway Administration or whether they will continue to make AMAX the place where the bone of contention is picked. What this means for transportation projects in Anchorage is that the state DOT has decided that they are going to implement a new policy that any project on a state road that involves a lane reallocation will be subject to an additional layer of study. The state DOT maintains that the AMAX studies that are done with respect to traffic flow, with respect to what's needed in terms of lane capacity, in terms of driver and pedestrian safety, that those are not enough. And so they would like to do an additional layer of study They are unclear who is going to do the study and how much time it is going to take per project. So put these, some of them already programmed and ready to build those projects through this additional layer of scrutiny. So this impacts the Northern Lights sidewalk and pavement project that is, I think, at 95% design right now. Because that project involves a lane reallocation, that project is paused. And there is considerable conversation happening right now about what's going to, or on next go down to her. So I want you to be aware of this because it affects your neighborhoods and it affects the safety of pedestrians in our city. There has been a pretty clear message sent from the state DOT that pedestrian safety is going to be prioritized below the convenience of drivers. That is the message we're getting. So stay tuned. I will continue to keep you posted on how things go with the AMAC policy committee and how this conversation unfolds with the state DOT and whether or not we can come to a resolution in hopefully a cordial fashion and in a fashion that makes sure that we retain local control. Well, that is really the issue. So that is your AMAC transportation update. I think there's have you heard from the chief yet?
Not yet.
Okay, then we'll ask still the chief's letter, that goes through. The other thing I would like to put before you is a really great milestone that I think probably no one is aware of, and that is that the comprehensive financial report for 2023, did you announce this already?
No, but I noticed it.
The municipalities, basically the municipalities reconciling checkbook or from 2023 is finally available to the. And that is the result of hundreds of additional man hours put in by really dedicated municipal employees to try to balance the books that were left unbalanced by the last administration. This document is available online, it's available to the public. If you want to actually see where all of the dollars go, the for ACFR is where you can find that information. We expect that the 2024 ACFR will be delivered soon after the first of the year, and then we'll be back on schedule with the checkbook. And I think all of us will breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, not happen. We are also entering into the next budget cycle. We expect to see a 120-day budget memo from the mayor here very shortly, outlining her priorities for the budget. We have some guidance from the assembly that is going to be on the agenda for the next assembly meeting, basically offering what our priorities are, what we would like to see funded. And I know it'll be a whole lot of back and forth, which you will be privy to as much as you would like. All of those meetings are public. There's nothing that happens behind closed doors to the municipal budget. So stay tuned for that. And I am really happy to take other questions. Those were the issues I wanted to be sure about this evening. And if there's anything else on your mind. Good job.
Sorry, so I'm thinking about the previous statement that they don't want to put on pause on the $1 billion project. Do you think that's basically money that people then won't get the contracts, the big trucking companies, the gravel companies, the workers, and they want that for their jobs and their financial future? Is that's just what I'm, it's either money or something that's gonna impact them, right?
Yeah, hard to say. So the governor made the Safer Sewer Highway a little bit of like a flagship project for his administration, and I think he was displeased that.
So that's a pride thing. I did this for you, and then everybody's going to be impressed with how fancy it is.
That another piece of that was that project actually skipped a lot of steps and got sort of shuffled to the front of the line in a way for funding. Generally that doesn't happen with federal highway administration funding. If there's a specific process you must follow in order for something to be funded, and that project incidentally didn't go through. So thank you so much. And then there's Tawny, and then just Matt, you're next.
What could we do to help you to beat the cartoon villains at DOT with funds listed?
So what you can do is, we are about to start work on the transportation improvement plan for 2027 to 2030. And you can submit comments on that plan, that basically voice your displeasure and voice your desires, right? What do you want to see in terms of transportation options and pedestrian safety, multimodal transportation and acreage? That's a great way to put your desires out into the public square, and they have to be noticed by DOT, because that document that we will create is incorporated into the state document. And that becomes the guiding plan for the state for 3 years.
And I've got Tawny and then Jason. Does Tawny have something in the chat? Jen?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Tawny.
I just want to say that I really appreciate the report and, the clarity in your comment about how the state is putting pedestrian safety at the bottom of the priority, at the lowest priority, and is prioritizing vehicular travel. And I just want to share a brief story, because this is not surprising to me, or I think the folks on the Spenard Corridor Task Force project who have heard this, but I believe it was last winter. It was we had like several deaths like right in a row, and we had a meeting, and the head of this DOT was there. And I remember asking this question because we were hearing about all these fixes, but they were coming in 3 years, or even more. And the question that I asked was, is there a number of deaths that we have to reach in a period of time, in a year, that will prompt the state to take immediate action or to actually prioritize pedestrian safety over vehicles and the convenience? And to his credit, he answered honestly, which is no, there is no threshold in which the state has an interest in stepping up and addressing that. And I think it's been a challenge, especially with these projects that are being already delayed, but to hear that they're now adding this additional burden is quite something. And I think we should all be quite alarmed by this, not a little, but quite alarmed by this, because I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to go over time. So thank you again for your report.
Jason, and then we're gonna move on to our next agenda item.
Thanks. The next update, I guess it's frustrating to hear about the desire to add in their analysis on these types of projects. And it really surprising to me, because it was just a couple weeks ago, April 16, which he's contracted with third party to go through and look at regulatory barriers. In my day job, it's all about permitting and making projects that much closer to being shovel ready, or what happened to break down barriers. Does that, I thought it was applying across all chapters. Is that something that we could maybe utilize as a direct point against more? Do you know if they are looking at DOT regulations under that executive framework?
That is a great question, and I do not know. I do not know if DOT is part of that. I imagine that there's a good deal more flexibility at federal level and latitude that our state DOT does not necessarily think. So I think that what we are seeing is a use of process as a roadblock, literally and figuratively. And whether that executive order is something that we could lean on to say, hey, we have federal guidance that is pointing towards fewer regulations. That's a great question. And that's something that I would probably ask the AMAX coordinator about. We have a work session tomorrow afternoon, so I'll bring that up and see if that's a potential argument we can make. But thus far, even the
we had a conversation with a federal highway administration official in the room with us and asked very, very direct questions. And she was very clear in her answers that this is not state jurisdiction, that the state cannot line item parts of projects that they don't like. And even with that very clear, very direct guidance, the state representative said, well, we disagree.
Is that where you got to still look online?
That work session is available online. If you would like to go and watch the fireworks, you can do that. Another thing I will point out is we also, as a part of AMAPS, and this should be on the AMAPS website now, there is a high crash network map that actually shows crash location and frequency that you can go and find. And it has a table along with it, which is really interesting because that table doesn't just tell you frequency and this part of the road that is the most dangerous. It also tells you what kind of crashes happen there and what percentage. So it's really interesting because it's not all pedestrian vehicular. There are a lot of dangerous places on our roads that are angle crashes, that are head-on collisions. So we have safety issues aplenty to deal with in the coming years. So anyway, thank you all so much. Thank you.
Right. Next up, we have APD's Chief of Police, John Case. I gave Chief Case a list of 9 questions to get him started, so prepared. So I want to give him an opportunity to get through those questions before we ask questions. And then as we ask our questions, just for the sake, making sure we get as people as we can. Raise your hand, I will call you in the order that I see you, just like we normally do. So anybody have questions before we get started? All right, okay, go for it, let's.
All right, I'm gonna kind of run down the questions one by one. And we're gonna start with in Spenard area, so just so that everybody kind of understands how to keep up with data. For probably in the last 6 or 7 years, our crime numbers are geographically contained within the boundary. So we'll talk about trying to district is specifically for your community council. It's also the geographical boundary that we use for our officers, what most people refer to as beats. So our beat alignment where we assign our officers are specific to the community council district, so that when officers come and visit, or when I come and visit community councils, we're specifically talking apples to apples, and we're not combining the different geographical areas in overlap to Spenard. One of the interesting things, as you all know, about Spenard is in most of our areas throughout Anchorage, if we look at the top 2 police responses, generally there's one crime number, and usually the first or second, and either priority or frequency. And then the second one is usually an officer initiated activity. And the reason why that kind of number rules out that way in this area of Anchorage is because there's usually a higher population of residential, commercial. And so that leads me to the unique situation that Spenard is, which is we have a lot of residential and a lot of commercial. And so we see our top 2 police calls for service or police activities in Spenard are actually calls for service, which is a little bit unique. And it shows kind of the distinction of that high number of residential and commercial properties. So if you look at our top 2 calls in this area, number 1 is disturbance, and we typically see those disturbances generally a little bit leaning more towards our residential type of areas. So the businesses are including, but generally the number that really kind of cranks that up is our residential areas. And then our number 2 highest call for service is trespass, which is generally the increase of that is on commercial properties. So those are our top 2. They stay pretty much consistent throughout the year. The last 3 months, they've also stayed consistent as our top 2. And then our 3rd highest police activity that we have is for stops. So that's an officer initiated activity. Those activities are highly directed based on the types of crimes and activities that we're having in and around the area. One of the tough questions here on the list is how we're prioritizing resources
based on fatalities that we've had. And so between patrol and our traffic unit, particularly our traffic unit, 50% of their activity is focused on areas of town that have had fatal collisions, either vehicle versus vehicle or vehicle versus pedestrians. So half of their time within that entire unit is focused on those specific areas. So that's where we see some of our traffic stops continue to be raised. So generally, when we see an officer doing some sort of traffic control, if you go back 10 years ago, those officers are generally in places where there's a higher likelihood that they're going to write a ticket. Whereas today, we use those resources where we're having things like fatal traffic collisions or specific complaints from neighborhoods. So a school area where we're getting speeding, we'll put officers in those areas to enforce speed limit. Residential areas where people are running stop signs, we'll put officers in that area specifically to do stop sign enforcement. Keeping in mind, that doesn't necessarily mean that citations are going to go up, because some areas, like stop sign violations, particularly in residential areas, are a little bit difficult to monitor and write a ticket because people can see the officers, so they stop. So we're getting corrective behavior. Doesn't always necessarily mean that we're getting enforcement with the citation behavior, but that's what's guiding the officer's direction on where they spend their particular time. So what community council can do to advocate? I think one of the important things is, obviously, as community council districts go, this is a pretty heavily attended meeting. Regularly is heavily attended meeting. And so the community councils always act as a conduit of information to the police department in terms of specific things that are sticking out focuses for the community. And so that conduit as community council is important to us, because you'll have kind of a collective voice that can send information our way. We obviously have 2 and 3 with member Day here, members of the assembly here. So we get information from our assembly members as well that regularly attend the community council here. Another question here is about what you as individual members of the community can do to help. I think one of the number one things is to make sure that you're reporting the things that are happening in and around your neighborhood, because that data and that information that we use directs our resources. So if we don't call, even if we don't like the response, keep calling, because those are all data points for us as to where we're going to put our officers and where to use our freedom for our officers. Specifically for Spenard, we are here in a couple of weeks, we're going to launch our impact team, and there's really a couple of areas now we're going to focus on that new unit. Anyone familiar with CAP? Me entry, please. Okay, so this is kind of similar to that team. It's going to be made up of immediately 3 patrol officers and 6 community service officers. Here in the next year, we'll have 3 more officers, so it'll be 6 officers and 6 community service officers. So that's half non-sworn, half sworn. So they're all working with the police department. They all have police radios. They all have communication within the police department. Typically, you're going to see those officers and CSOs working in tandem together. Each of those employees are going to responsible for a specific geographical area of town. So we have one of those officers that will eventually be assigned to the Spenard area. That particular officer is going to be this group's go-to for neighborhood issues, problems with businesses, problems with residential areas, problem locations, problem businesses, problem locations for a whole host of things that are specific to this particular area. So like I said, we're launching that in a couple of weeks. We're going to spend a little bit extra time in a couple of neighborhoods as we've got some community problems that we have to work our way through. So it will take us just a little bit of time before we start spreading out the impact team to every single neighborhood, but that will be coming here in the future for this community council district as well. Businesses. So something that our businesses can do in the Spenard area in a couple of weeks here, we have a technology package that will be going for the assembly. And that technology package is going to have a couple of things that are going to be specific to neighborhoods and particularly businesses within, as it relates to this community council district Spenard, where we will be able to use their video footage that they have in their surveillance cameras around their businesses. So if you think right now, the business has, problem location where we've got, drug use, drug sales, thefts, vandalism, all these sorts of calls for service. Generally what happens is someone's not there where it happens, those business owners may or may not go through all the video footage and try to figure that out, who committed that. They may or may not call us. And then we have to go and try to collect the data and then kind of work that investigation backwards. What this would allow is the police department have immediate access to that video. And so when you're having some of these problem locations, we would have the ability to start proactively placing officers in these locations that are impacting some of the businesses that we have, negatively impacting some of the business that we have, instead of always waiting for that call for service or first recognition, then call for service, then us arriving and having kind of a longer term investigation. The other thing that we'll be adding in this technology package is something we'll be developing with a vendor, which is currently there's a system out there called Aura, and that is businesses can purchase access to this particular database. It's designed for businesses to share information. So if I own a business and have somebody that comes in and, you know, steals, that trespass, vandalism on my business facility, I collect information as a business owner. And then if you also own a business, I can share that information to you and say, hey, this person has been committing crimes in my place. So if you see them, probably want to trespass in your area. What the vendor of that product is going to do now is create a law enforcement module for that. So now we're going to be able to share information back and forth. As a business owner, I'm able to also build a case for somebody that committed a crime, put together that complete case package with video and trespass warning and all the information that is evidence of that particular crime. And then we'll eventually, as we develop a program, be able to just hand that over to the police department. And then I can have one or two detectives that pretty much their sole job is to take that, review that information, get an arrest warrant, and then go on and serve the arrest warrant. So that will be coming in the future with this technology package and as it's developed in the future. So a couple of things that will be coming online in the future, which I know generally we talk about things down the road. We prefer things are happening right now. But it's important that we forecast that sort of stuff. So I can give you updates on how to do that process. Some of the immediate things that have happened, obviously, we talk about Chelsea Inn. You know, the challenges that the Chelsea Inn caused over the last year. I mean, we can go historically and we can talk about the challenges, but I think we all have seen over the last several months, 12 months, that challenges and problems because the Chelsea are continuously escalated. And so getting the Chelsea Inn shut down in and of itself has had pretty positive impact on the community and the neighborhood. Hopefully some of you are. So
Customers are still there.
yeah, so a couple of things on that. So moving forward, it's important that we all know that the Chelsea Inn's going to remain pointed up, fenced up. Their cameras should have already gone up in that parking lot as well. And that's going to be about a year is the timeline from the U.S. Commissioner's Office, who took custody of that building of the FBI search warrants. Before that property we do something. I shouldn't say we, but before the federal government's going to do something with that property, whether they tear it down, whether they want to sell it, that's for a later date. But that process is going to take about a year. So what that means is we've got a building that's got a fence that's boarded, that's still going to be, standing within the community. Now, it's not going to be as bad as it was when it was operational, but it's still going to be attracting, some criminal conduct. So we understand that. We've got some extra patrols in the area. We've also expanded the patrols in the area outside, in and around the Chelsea Inn, because we realize that clientele is not going to go away overnight. We also realize that the clientele is going to spread just a little bit. And so that response also is just a Anchorage Police Department response. We have a piece of that puzzle that we're involved in. We have some more partners that are also, as you heard, actively patrolling the area, maintaining and taking care of their clientele. And I'll piggyback on something that you said earlier. Where we're at 2 years ago in terms of providing shelter and services in the shelter is much, much different than where we're at today. And so not just with the police department, the shelters and nonprofits, the health and fire department, ASP in their service patrol area, the expansion of that program, our mobile intervention team, fire department's mobile crisis response, which is their clinical response, like our mobile intervention teams, our clinical officer response, and then our homeless operation prevention team. So we're kind of adding layers and layers to try to address some of the kind of multi-layered problems that we're seeing in some of these communities. And although I think everyone would probably agree with me that the frustration level that's been building over the last couple of years is relatively high. And but we're starting to see wins. You know, the Chelsea is one win. Some of these services that we have, that I just mentioned, mobile intervention, the AFD and APD, OT, things like that, those are all wins. And we're seeing positive trends that happen overnight. And we still have things coming online municipal wide. So so that's kind of some specific things about crime. Let me see if I missed anything on here. There's a question of how we measure our success, particularly in the Spenard area. Of course, the crime data is one simple way that we use, but unfortunately, that data only tells us little pieces of the puzzle. And one of the ways that we're going to change the way our data collection exists, which hopefully is going to start in January of 2026 when we get our new computer-aided dispatch system online, where we'll be able to collect a lot broader amount of information, is we'll be able to look at kind of beyond the numbers of just crime. We'll be able to get really kind of condensed into small areas where not only we see crime happening, but we'll be able to dig down and find what the reason of that crime is. We'll specifically be able to know some more specific details about the people committing the crime, the people that are being victimized by the crime, the location, and specific about the location, so that we could try to do various different things within the municipality, try to make improvements in those locations. So again, Chelsea is an example, we have one of those high crime in and around that area. We know the focal point because that's an easy one. I don't need a computer system to tell me that. But when you go outside of something that is as big of a problem as the Chelsea, and really trying to narrow down what the cause of some of these increased crime is, becomes a little more challenging without a database that we can really comb and look at the numbers besides just straight calls reported and crimes reported to us. So we'll kind of explain how we look at how successful we are. But as a municipality and also the police department, you know, we also monitor data that's outside specific calls for service. So we're looking at overdose data. We're looking at how successful we are with not only sheltering, but housing people. That all is not a specific task that APD is involved, but it's part of the public safety response as a municipality. I can tell you, if you go back in time, we didn't do that as a city. We just simply didn't coordinate the efforts and coordinate the data. And my data was my data, and nobody else saw it. And the same thing with everyone else's data. I didn't see it. We didn't put it together. We didn't each kind of try to problem solve and come up with coordinated response throughout the municipality. So in the last year, watching that come together, then I haven't seen it 25 years. So that's great. Did I miss any of my questions? Number three. Slow response or no response. So generally when someone says there's no response, that's a simple answer that I can find. So if somebody has that type of an issue, it's really easy to determine whether or not officers didn't come, because we have call data on that. Generally officers do come. It may not be when you're still there, maybe when you're sleeping. I'll tell you a couple of things on call for service. If you do call APD, one of the questions that you're guaranteed to get asked is, do you want police contact or no police contact? If you say no police contact, nobody's going to tell you whether or not they came today. A couple of months down the road, whether you want contact or no contact, if you contacted us on a cell phone, we will have a way of just sending you a text message and say, hey, APD was here and we cleared the call, we made an arrest. A very simple text. That text will also include when we're responding as well. So if you're calling in the middle of the night and we'll come knocking you and wake you up to let you know that we just went to the disturbance down the road, we'll leave you a text message. And so when you get up in the morning, you take a look at that. So just keep that in mind. When you say no contact, we're not going to contact you. If you want contact, we're going to contact you. Before our June Academy start, we're 62 officers short. We had a full academy for the first time in 5 years. That's 28 officers in our academy to call full. That training cycle is 12 months once they get into the academy. So to academy training, which is just under 6 months, And our field training program, which is also just under 6 months, means that those 28 officers in the academy don't count for anything until a year later. So when we look at our numbers and say, hey, how short is APE? The number now, we start having full academies, isn't going to be the answer to the question. The answer really is the new officers we have on the street as we go through these training cycles. It looks like our December academy, which is our second academy of the year, we're trending towards having a more full academy. I was told one yet, so I don't know that information yet, but the number of applicants that we had for our December academy is again the highest it's been in over 5 years. So those numbers are trending up. Again, those officers will be out on the street a year from December. So that just means that our staffing levels we may see them go up and increase. It's just that we're a year lag before we're going to see them out on the street. The plan is for this current academy that's in, most of those officers that finish field training, usually it's like April, May of next year. Most of those officers will go back into patrol, so we can have quicker response time. That's what's slowing down the response time, just a lack of officer availability. And then the December academy that will start later on this year, the same thing. The majority of those officers who graduate from that academy will also be put into patrol services. And once we tackle those two academies, then you'll start to see some of the officers graduating from the academy go into specialized units, so backfilling detectives and those types of positions. So we got to prioritize patrol at first, and that's our basic level of response. You get them all?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Alright. Bear with me. We're gonna limit it to one question per person the first time around. If we run out of people asking questions, we can go back for seconds. Francesca, Matt, Jason, Sarah. No,
Have we been utilizing the program, the community work service for people to, if they're gonna get a fine or citation, have the ability to work off the fine versus go to jail or pay money?
So the community service program is version opportunity that happens close to us. And it's a decision on street days, so the police department doesn't have anything to do with that. That's a later opportunity. Oh, we are. We're actually advocating that opportunity to push down pre-arrest so that we get people immediately utilizing that type of response instead of going to criminal justice, because it's immediate formation.
Yes, sir. So I'm concerned that your information that you're getting regarding police officers showing up or not showing up is inaccurate. 2 weeks ago, I had a break in my house. I was at home and I saw her announce to her friend that that door is cracked. I'm going to go break into that house. So I called the police. I was on the phone with the police when she broke into the house. I was on the phone with the police when I chased her out to my house. I was on the phone with the police when she scaled the fence to get out of my yard. I was on the phone with the police. And they said the police officer is at your door. And I was like, no, he's not. And they said the police officer's right there. I said, no, he's not. And they said, well, he'll be there shortly. And I said, okay. And no one ever showed up. I called back and complained. Captain Carson told me that the policeman did come to my house, that he was there. I said, no, he was not. He said that he was there within 5 minutes of my phone call. He was not. My wife was sitting right next to me. No one ever showed up.
Those are easy things for us to find out. So we have call dispatch logs, we got audio, so we can, I'll give the afterwards, I'll get your name and number. It sounds like Captain Carson kind of knows about that. And it's easily verifiable thing for us. Like they didn't show up. We got body cams that we can pull. Like I can figure out what house he went to if the officer went to the wrong house. So I'll get the afterwards and get your contact information with that. And then exactly.
Jason, Don, Shauna, Kyrie.
Thanks for the update. I'm having a response, having dispatch response is really important. How that response plays out is perhaps even more important at times. And so I'm really curious as to the status of the CIT program. How many officers are going through that on an annual basis? Do you guys have a targeted number for Anchorage Police? I think I hear at this meeting a lot of people's concerns with people in the community with mental health conditions, and having that proper response from law enforcement officers is really key. And so, just if you give an update on the CIT program.
Sure. So CIT program, we started training our officers in 2002. We give all of our recruits, not CIT, more of a shorter version of CIT. Our officers that are CIT certified specifically put in to be a CIT officer. They go through a selection process because we want to make sure that, you know, we have willing participants and not just forcing everybody to go through it. Because then we kind of water down the system, and a CIT officer doesn't mean anything if, right, you don't have officers that are really invested in that. So all our CIT officers are selected, and then they attend the training. We have one CIT certified course every year that our officers have the opportunity to go through. And I would say, and I just looked at these numbers, I don't know the exact memories, or as in a third of our patrol officer, quarter of a third of our patrol officer are safety certified. On top of that, I think what's even a little bit more important, because I know that we talk about CIT, we've talked about CIT since the early 2000s, the Tennessee model. And what we have found out historically throughout the country, not just at APDs, that CIT officers have, and there's benefit to them certainly, but there's another level of knowledge, information, care that's actually required as it appears that our behavioral health challenges are increasing throughout the country, and certainly here in Anchorage. So we're no different from the rest of the country. So that's why we had now 7 mental health clinicians that are all master's level. They paired up with an officer that's their partner, so they work with the same partner every single day. And they run about 18 hours a day. So there's a couple hours in the middle of the night where they're not working, but the rest of the time they're 7 days a week, about 18 hours a day. So, and I add this on your question just because that's kind of where we're starting to see things get better for our patrol response, because now not only, our CAT officers get 40 hours training, so it's better than nothing. It's helpful, but our clinicians they have a master's degree. They all have worked in the field, in residential, in treatment facilities, across psych, and various different places throughout town before we hired them. So their experience level is quite high. And almost immediately when we brought those clinicians on board, we started to see a different level of response from our officers. For example, we cut down for our psyche admissions by 50%. And we started seeing those numbers right around the 50% in the 3 months of having them on board. So they're providing continuous education to our patrol officers, but they're also responding in the field. And as we add clinicians, the 7th one we added this year, they're obviously taking more calls for service and becoming more involved. Those clinicians originally weren't designed to come on and handle high-risk calls. If they want to come and handle high-risk calls, it'd be cops. And most of our clinicians are crisis negotiator trained. Crisis negotiation department, up until now, we're all sworn police officers that respond to like SWAT call outs and barricades. And so most of our clinicians are now CAT trained. So they're going to high-risk calls where there's a weapon, where there's a knife, where there's a gun, and they're engaging in negotiations with folks that are in crisis. And so that element's been added. One of the things that I say is I quadruple the size of my clinician team, and still have work for them to do. There's just that much work to do. And again, officers that are CAT trained, they're great. I love them. They have a great response. They're needed, but we just have a higher level of care that's needed in the community, and clinicians are kind of filling that. So I went a little bit outside what you asked, but I think it's important. That was great. Rapid.
Next we got Don, then Sean, Irene, Jed, Dave.
Yeah. I think I heard you say that you're gonna have in Spenard, you have 3 officers and 3 community service people in the next through few weeks. Did I hear you say that?
No, we'll have so our impact team is going to be made of immediately in the next couple of weeks when we launch it. It will be 3 officers and 6 community service officers. And each one of those employees will be responsible for an area. So Spenard will have one of those employees that'll be kind of your go-to when we have like neighborhood issues or problems. Calls for service will still go to patrol, but those reoccurring things where we need not just a patrol response, but maybe let's say a problem location or a problem business where we need an officer that specifically is going to be talking to that business owner on a daily or weekly basis to try to reduce whatever issue that they're having in the area. Eventually, that'll be 12 people in that union. But again, Spenard was
Where do these people come? Are they coming from other parts of the city, other parts of the organization, like, are you dismantling something?
So our CAT team that we've had for years, those 3 officers are going to be what's our impact team, and then the 6 community service officers. Those are brand new positions that graduated from the academy about 6 weeks ago and just got done with FTO. So this week they're finishing up FTO. So those are new positions, new employees, newly trained, and they'll be making up the 6 the CSOs and the impact team.
Okay, next up we got Shauna.
Oh, I was very interested in that camera conversation and getting out tech packages to people. Does it have to be commercial? And if you do have a commercial building, how do you do that?
Yeah, so we right now the contract that we're getting is 750 camera feeds that will be able to be accepted, and there'll be do more, but just changes the price point. So what our first goal really is to look at those areas of town that have increased criminal challenges. You know, if we start off by taking residential cameras, there's a lot of those. So the businesses are going to be more of a focal point. Now, I will say that there's 2 additional things that I didn't mention before that impact residential. So for those people who have Ring cameras, that's part of the technology package. So if we have, let's say, a homicide or a crime that happened, and we could geofence it. So within a 3-block or 4-block radius of that crime, you would immediately be notified by Ring cameras. The police department's investing this crime happened during these things. And they have access to your Ring camera during this 30-minute, hour, 90-minute period, and they'll send you a link, and we immediately get access within your cameras for that sort of thing. If you don't have a Ring camera, and another thing that runs kind of issue is, again, we can geofence, put out, whether we use the mainstream media, social media, put a link. And so for those of you who have cameras around your house that don't have Ring cameras, a link would be available. So again, we're investigating crime in this location. If you have video footage that during this time frame that you can click on the link and upload that data directly to us, and then that becomes part of the investigative package. So a little bit different from having a live video feed, but still homeowners can have, and businesses can do the same thing. They can voluntarily participate if they have information that will help lead to arrest.
But if you have a commercial building, you guys would come to that because we have a common area. You say, hey, put this video that you got.
That's how we're going to start. We're going to look at those areas and start talking some of the businesses in town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a blank, but I can have you in line. Sorry. I got Irene, then Jed, Dave, Jamie. I'm sorry, what's your name?
My name's Holly.
Irene.
All right, just slightly related, is your high-tech new camera thing, is that kind of CCTV? I probably watch a little too much Bridgebox and others, but everything seems to be solved by looking at those kind of cameras. So is that is it a similar?
So generally, cameras that businesses and homeowners based services, so examples of the cloud-based service. So they're not like it's not running to a disk or a hard drive computer in your house. It's going to the cloud, which is why it now becomes easier to share data footage, because you can give me access to like a file in the cloud, and I just pull it in your server.
So it's getting there. So the next question, it's not really.
There's actually one question, Irene, sorry. Jed, you're.
I'm just asking on behalf of someone in the chat, how many calls for service and officer initiated responses has the Chelsea had in the last 5 years?
Don't quote me on this because I got to think a little bit here. It's 1,000 calls for service, and is that the last year? Yeah, so 1,000 calls for service in the last year, so not quite your 5-year window, but I have to go in the back of my mind for that to be pulled already. And I don't recall how many are officer initiated, but it's generated a significant amount of call volume. I mean, it's the highest location.
We've got Dave, Jamie, Colleen, Irene.
So Chief, over the last decade, we traditionally had about 14 to 15 APD SROs in our high schools and at Clark Middle School. Right now, we're down to 10 as of Tuesday. Our security personnel is very concerned. Even with 15, we have days of the month where there's no APD presence in our high schools. And the 4-day work week complicates that. So right now, we've got quite a few days every month where we're exposed in the high schools. I know you want to prioritize patrol, but I'd make a plea on behalf of this street to also prioritize SROs and getting our full complement, traditional complement of SROs back to our high schools.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
We had a conversation about that before.
Yeah.
I understand that. I was an SRO the very first year it was launched, so I'm very familiar with the system, very familiar with that, with what SROs do. I'm also very familiar with the connection that not only SROs make with the students, but prevention that is oftentimes very difficult to measure. Even without measuring it, we know it exists. And we do routinely use SROs and the information they have to solve crimes even 3-4 years after somebody graduates, because they just have that knowledge base. So I'm with you in all of that. Here's the challenge. When we look at when our staffing a couple of years ago was extremely low, and we had to look at cutting units within the police department because we just simply weren't responding to calls for service in a timely manner. Every unit that we go down, we go, which one is not important enough that we're actually going to cut? So also, let's take traffic. We're not cutting traffic, which will be clear. She's Kansas whole. So let's say we go to traffic and go, hey, you know what? Like patrol officers can pick up doing traffic stops. Like we can get away with not having traffic officers for a year, 2 years, or whatever it is until our staffing levels come up. Maybe traffic's the unit that we stop. And then as we stop and think about that, we think about the previous, one of the presentations that was here a little bit earlier, we look at traffic studies. The trafficking involvements of those things. Where does that go? We look at high volume requests from the public at speeding in school zones, red light violation. Where does that go? Well, now when you have patrol that's behind, we expect them to pick up the slack they can. So traffic's super important. And I could go on down the line. And so when we look at SROs, I'm not saying that we're never going to fully staff SROs, but we have to get through this academy, put resources out so that we can respond to calls in a timely manner. We know that we have a hole, if you will, in our response system when our calls for service take forever to respond. And we know that the problems with slow response is that we have increasing crime, we have vandalism or graffiti, someone mentioned over here. And so I'm not deprioritizing SROs. We're not getting rid of SROs, but the SRO program can have to hold on just a little bit until we get to that point where we're staffing patrol at somewhat of an adequate level. All of our units are short.
Jamie, Irene, and then I should go. Jamie's okay.
Oh, okay. So I have IT related questions, but comments are short linked, and so you could say, where did it go? Okay, so you have application programming interfaces, in various types of software, and they can talk to each other. And in this case, you're mentioning Aura, specifically with the ability to share cameras, suspect activity home. I'm assuming it's within this area, in the Anchorage metro area. And so, I don't know what your data retention policy is with respect to video footage, or if it has the ability to push footage up to this service via the module. But the question then becomes, what sort of limitation or restriction is there, to this thing? Because if you're dealing with crimes right then and there, you're dealing with something in real time, but it could easily turn into, say, intelligence related stuff with, different sources and types of methods, signals intelligence, but it could turn into London, wherein these other things, and the question becomes who watches the watchers. And so, that is my concern. Is, do you have the ability to push this stuff back to the cloud without video footage to supplement your own data retention? And if so, then where does the policy restrictions get limited to civilian oversight, stuff of this nature?
So I think your primary question is our data retention policy.
Sort of things, but there's other things.
I'll focus on that. data retention policy. So, the technology package that I mentioned a minute ago, one of the things that we're going to be sharing with the assembly is a couple of policies, 3 specific policies that have to do with a lot of the concerns that you're talking about. Because, and those are obviously when policy and the technology go live, is all going to be, public information. So it's really, really important that, I mean, I think most people in Anchorage and Alaska all share a common theme, like we want to see crime go down, we want to see people that need to be arrested, get arrested, but we also don't want too much of an infringement on our privacy. We don't want our information going a lot of places. So a lot of this data that we would be collecting is, you mentioned that, is it's ideal for real time or close proximity. So our retention schedule is going to be relatively short. Most agencies that have this sort of information, their retention schedule is very, very long. So keep a lot of historical data. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the immediate impact we will have, put officers where they need to be, and respond quicker to crime in the area. And so some of the concerns you have, I mean, hopefully I'll hit most of them. We'll draft we've already started drafting a policy. So when this package comes before the assembly, we'll be able to talk about specifically what is in the policy. And then that's obviously.
Of course, anything footage to the cloud. Or
Evidence.com, just secure, seems compliant. Evidence.
Holly, and then Kyrie, and then just me.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
So, I think there's a lot to say, but I wanted to just focus on the open drug use. Since the Chelsea's been raided, now we've got little hot spots all over, and I run a little business right there in the middle of the hall. It's been more difficult for years, but I'm at the point where it's just an unsafe place, my business, and then I live down the street as well and have a child. She's supposed to walk up to school through all those open drug use, through the Minnesota Strip, kind of laser wash, through the Minnesota Park, which is like a festival of debauchery, nonstop. So I don't know if it's a question, but this is a roundabout way. When I call 311, which I do constantly, the cops might come, or the patrol at Circle K will come up on their way, like little route, and it'll just shift the people like little, and they'll just come right back. There's not anything that's being done. So if we had connection maybe with strategic plan to like shut it down and provide services, or hopefully at least offer services, that could be something. So is open drug use illegal, or is it legal these days that we have to like watch this and let it be ruined?
So the part where it becomes a crime, you have a whole bunch of things that can say response to that.
I'm just
The question, I'll answer the question first. The question is it illegal? It is illegal to possess certain substances. So here's a frustrating thing for all of us. If you have a video of somebody ingesting a drug, I'll say presumably because it's on a video, it. We prove, right? So theoretically, yes, you put a needle on it. Like, probably pretty certain that's drug, right? And you give me that video, and I find that person 5 minutes later, there's no drug left, it's all ingested. That is a non-chargeable criminal offense in the state of Alaska. Not the case in every state, but in Alaska, that's the problem. So that's the answer to your question, but I'm going to go a little further because there's a lot of stuff we had in there. So from a data perspective, what you just described, if I look at these numbers that I have here, what's the difference between your neighborhood and his neighborhood? Today, we have a difficult time discerning that, other than complaints that come in or officers that are in your area. And so when I talk about enhancing the data, what we're really trying to focus on is the area that you described. If we have the same level of crime happening in what you described versus maybe a different area of town or different neighborhood, that becomes a higher priority, right? Because what you describe has a direct impact on education, children, like ability to walk to and from to grocery stores, those sorts of things. So that's where we're going with the data, so we can hone in our resources The other thing that, and I'll mention the impact team again, because that's one of their areas that we're gonna focus on, because they are focused on a specific area of town, so they're gonna be honed into that. And the last thing that I'll mention to you is, right now, our primary response is patrol response, and they do exactly what you said. Why? Because they show up, they're like, everyone's leaving. Right, I don't see a crime right now, and I go on to the next call, and then you call back 3 hours later, the next day. Yep, and it's the reoccurring cycle. And so having a patrol level, patrol response, drug team helps us respond to those sorts of things. That's coming. Can give you a date. It's coming online, please. Yeah.
Can I just add though? I mean, I do wanna let you know that after the, like, within like 3 hours of the operation that the Chelsea's starting, we had our outreach team staged in your area. So we actually had a team that came down from the valley, we had a boat team, we had sort of reentry services, we had a community volunteer, you know, and so I think we got 3 people into detox on the day of the bust. We also have been like pretty much every day at Minnesota Park, whether that's the mobile crisis team going there, the the CAP team going, Hope team going. You know, we're really trying to be in your area and have a really strong presence. And what we know is that it takes, I mean, we looked at some data, currently 6 months of outreach. It took 50 encounters to get one person into treatment. So like having kind of incessant outreach is sort of our approach, because that's what we can see makes a difference. And, you know, we can't compel people to go if they're not committing a crime or they're not at the point where they can be titled. Like we can't compel people to go, but we can continuously make that offer available, and that's what we're doing.
As a follow-up, I think one thing I want to make really crystal clear, with you, we're not a different story, but from the municipalities and the police department's perspective, if we have contact with somebody that is a drug user, not a drug dealer, not a drug distributor, we have contact with somebody that's a drug user, we will always err on the side of truth. Always, over arrest. Some people don't like that answer. That's our answer. Now, it may take a couple attempts, it may take 25 attempts, but we're always, if we can find space, if we can find the opportunity, we're always going to take that route. It's just better. Yeah. It's more efficient effectively.
Okay, I've got, I read and then I close it up because at 9 and 8:57.
Okay, the correlation I was heading for is tagging and vandalism, you know, like graffiti. I see it painted over a lot where I ride the bike along coastal trail, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes again. So I'm thinking cameras or drones. Is anyone ever caught being the graffiti artist, and are they any part of a gang that maybe is pushing the drugs and maybe not using the drugs? I don't know, they seem to be very artistic and, you know, color coordinated, but there's something going on that just seems to repeat, as you said, this circle. Yeah. Are there gangs in town that are known for their tag designs that you know what they're doing and how to get in them before the poor people that are drugged?
Question. Yeah, she knows all sorts of things.
Just
So,
any relation.
very rare episodes, so that's one piece of that. The gang activity that we have in Anchorage, I generally don't like to use the word gang activity because that's, you know, when you think of traditional gang, that's not what we have here.
Okay.
Most of our kind of like criminal element that we would think of as a gang here in Anchorage is really around drug activity, drug sales, right? Usually it's the drug. So that's why we have people that lead the gang, one gang one day, 2 weeks later, they'll claim another gang. Like you wouldn't actually do that in Los Angeles. That's the way to, you know, have some trouble. But they do that because it's a drug distribution.
That's what I
So it's not really a gang thing that you're thinking of.
I'll erase gang from my mind.
Yeah, and the third thing that I'll mention on that, in other cities, when we talk about some of the technology that you're talking about, whether it be drones or whether it be cameras, other cities use that type of technology for some of those crimes that are lower level in terms of severity if you get prosecuted, to try to catch those folks. I will tell you that we're not going to start using technology with that. And I go back to kind of the way we are as Alaskans and like We don't want every block, every corner having a camera watching everything we do. And so we're a little bit hesitant, even though it's been successful in other areas, to like just put cameras all over the city and say, hey, wherever you go, wherever you breathe, Big Brother's seeing you. That's as a community, we don't.
Very helpful. Thank you so much for coming. I think it's really for our department heads and our decision makers to hear like what's happening in our community directly. So I really appreciate that you took the time to come tonight. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to do it on a regular basis.
Between myself and the manager who has the entire team, one of us and the regular. Well,
That'd be great. If there are no objections, we'll adjourn.
I adjourn.
Right.